When I was 12 years old, my mom had just started trusting me enough to stay home alone. We lived in a quiet, safe little town, calm streets, big yards, friendly neighbors, and a cute village nearby with shops and restaurants. It was the kind of place where you didn't have to worry if you were walking alone at night. That's probably why my parents felt okay leaving me home alone at a young age. I still live with my parents in the same house today. This particular night happened on a weekend. My sister wasn't home for some reason, and my grandparents weren't around to babysit. Since I was old enough, my parents decided to just leave me alone for the night. My parents had me and my sister when they were young, so they were still pretty active and liked to go out with friends on weekends. Before they left, they gave me some money to order pizza. It was the perfect night for a 12-year-old. Home alone, video games, and pizza. While waiting, I switched games on my PlayStation. When the doorbell finally rang, I ran downstairs with the $20 bill my parents had left. My mom told me to tip the driver for dollars, which wasn't bad since the place was only 3 blocks away. The delivery guy looked to be in his 30s. He had a long, messy beard, wore glasses, and had on a black trucker hat. I gave him the $20 and asked for specific change. As he handed me the pizza and started counting the change, he suddenly looked up at me, then looked past me into the house, and asked, "You alone here?" It was a weird, creepy question. My parents had taught me to be careful with strangers, so I replied, "My parents are on their way home." Looking back, that wasn't a smart answer. I should have just said no. Then I wrapped up the leftovers and put them in the fridge. I figured my parents were back, so I ran downstairs and called out, "Mom, Dad." He just repeated that he needed to use the phone. I decided to ignore it and quietly went back upstairs. I knew just from instinct that opening that door was a terrible idea. While I was walking up the stairs, which are right in front of the front door, the man suddenly banged on the door and said, "Wait, please, I need help." But instead of a familiar voice, a stranger said, "Hey, I need help." He was watching through the glass at the top of the door. I headed back upstairs to play another James Bond game, Agent Under Fire. I liked it less than Nightfire, but it was still fun. But I could tell he was suspicious because there were no cars in the driveway, and a kid had answered the door instead of an adult. After he gave me the change, I closed the door, went into the kitchen, and ate about 3 slices. Hours passed. Around 11 p.m., the doorbell rang again. He claimed he needed to use the phone. I asked, "Who is this?" I didn't want to look out the window. Honestly, I was scared. That's when I realized he had seen me. I turned around, and even though it was dark outside, I could clearly see the man's outline standing on the front porch. I couldn't see his eyes, but it was obvious that he was staring straight at me. I ran upstairs and into my parents' bedroom, the only place with a house phone upstairs. I immediately called my mom's cell phone. I didn't have my dad's number memorized at the time. My mom answered, probably a little tipsy from a few glasses of wine. Just as I said that, the doorbell rang again, twice in a row. But as soon as I told her someone was at the door asking to come in, she instantly sobered up. Her tone changed completely. She got serious and loud. I told my mom the guy wouldn't leave. She told me to stay in their room, keep the door locked, and stay calm. She said she and my dad were calling the police. She started asking me questions right away. First, she asked if I had talked to the man or if he knew I was home. I told the truth and said yes. I had spoken to him and asked who he was. She asked me if anyone else could have known I was home alone, and I immediately thought of the pizza guy. That's when her concern really kicked in. I told her he had asked me if I was alone when he delivered the pizza. They had to leave the restaurant they were at to get better cell reception and talk more clearly with the police. I started panicking. That's when I heard the sound of our backyard gate slowly creaking open. It didn't slam. It opened quietly, Almost carefully, my mom stayed on the phone with me while my dad called the cops from his phone. It was a summer night, so some windows were cracked open to let in fresh air. I told my mom what I heard. She told me again to stay quiet, keep the lights off, and don't move. I whispered, "What if he tries to come in through the den window?" She told me to stop talking and just wait for the police. She kept updating me on the phone, how long the police would take, what they were doing, and reminded me again and again not to make a sound. I was trying to stay calm, but then I heard it. Footsteps. Someone was downstairs, inside the house, walking around. She must have told the police right away, because I heard her yell something on the other line like, "He's inside the house, hurry." For 12-year-old me, this was the scariest, most unreal moment of my life. The only thing I felt protecting me was the tiny lock on my parents' bedroom door. He jiggled the handle a few times, as if that would somehow magically open it. Then he knocked, lightly, no words, just a quiet knock. I whispered to my mom in a panic. My mom told me to hide under the bed and stay there. I heard the footsteps coming up the stairs. Our bedrooms are at the top of the stairs, and my parents' room is at the end of the hallway. The footsteps paused, probably while he checked mine and my sister's rooms. Then I heard them getting closer to the master bedroom. He tried to open the door, but it was locked. He tried the doorknob one last time, and then I heard him walk back down the hallway, down the stairs, and then silence. I did everything I could to hold back tears. I didn't even whisper into the phone. I was too terrified to make a single sound. Finally, my mom said the police were there, but told me to stay hidden anyway. I expected the police to break down the front door, but instead, my mom, still on the phone, gave me permission to answer and open the door. I suddenly heard heavy footsteps and a man shouting my name, saying he was a police officer. My parents took me to Johnny's Pizzeria. They wanted me to point out the delivery driver if I saw him. But when we got there, I didn't see him. So my parents asked the manager which employee matched the description I gave. I heard them coming up the stairs. I unlocked it, and two police officers were standing there. There were also 2 more officers downstairs. My parents were still on the phone and listening to everything I said. They were on their way back home, and by the time they arrived, only 2 officers were still at the house. It turned out they didn't need to break in. The back door was wide open, and the backsliding window had been slid all the way open. That's how the man got inside. I told the officers everything, including how the pizza guy had asked if I was home alone. The police wrote a report, and I made sure to mention the pizza guy. The officers said they would look into it. The next night, the manager said that sounded like Phil, who was currently out making a delivery. My parents explained the whole situation, but the manager immediately said there was no way Phil could have done that, and then asked us to leave the restaurant. My parents were furious. They made a big scene, told the manager they'd never order from Johnny's again, and stormed out. My parents believed the manager had probably called or texted Phil and warned him not to return. We waited in the car in the parking lot for almost an hour, hoping to see if Phil came back. But he never did. Later, they contacted a few lawyers, but none of them took the case. And for a long time, my parents didn't feel comfortable leaving me home alone again, all because of this incident. They said there wasn't enough solid proof, and pursuing it would be a waste of time. After that, we never went back to that pizzeria, or someone connected to him, because who else would have known I was home alone that night? In the end, I still believe it was the pizza guy. This happened when I was a teenager. My family moved from California to a very remote area in North Idaho. It felt like the kind of house people dream of, peaceful, private, and far from everything. My parents had just retired and built their dream home deep in the forest. There were no neighbors nearby, just endless trees, national parkland, and logging grounds. The house itself was huge, 2 floors, a home gym, a full bar and pool room, and even a real movie theater in the basement. At the time, I was dating my high school girlfriend. I started in the movie room. That's when I looked out the large window facing the backyard, and I saw him. One night, while my parents were out on a date downtown, I invited her over to hang out and watch a movie. We were completely alone in the house. I didn't want to scare my girlfriend, so I stayed quiet. Things even started to get a little romantic between us, but the entire time, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching us. I had a beer, even though I was underage, and we went down to the movie room to watch Gladiator. Everything started off normal, but about halfway through the movie, something inside me changed. I was suddenly hit with a strong feeling of panic, like my body was warning me about danger even though I couldn't see anything. My heart was racing, and I kept glancing over at the windows behind us that looked out into the pitch-black forest. After the movie, I walked her upstairs and out to her car. The house was completely quiet again. Once she left, I remembered I had left the lights on downstairs, in the bar, pool room, and movie room, so I went back to turn them off. There was a man standing outside. He looked homeless, messy hair, filthy clothes, but what scared me the most was his face. He had this huge, creepy smile and wide, crazy-looking eyes. In one hand, he was holding a knife and gently tapping it against the glass. Over and over. At first, I thought maybe I was hallucinating. I backed away slowly and went into the bar room to turn off those lights too. That room had a sliding glass door that also faced the woods. When I turned on the light, I saw the same man walk calmly from the window to the door, still smiling, still staring. Now, we were only about a foot apart, with just the glass between us. He didn't try to break in. He didn't move at all. He just stood there, smiling at me. I quietly walked upstairs. Just then, my parents walked through the front door. I told them, I think I need to go to the psych ward or something. I swear I just saw a man with a knife watching me outside. My mom went pale. My dad didn't say a word. He grabbed his rifle from the gun safe and went outside to check. I asked my mom what was going on. She told me there had been a few break-ins in the area recently. Some strange man wandering through the woods trying to get into homes. No signs of break-in, no footprints. Just cold, silent forest, and the man I saw. He matched the description exactly. My bedroom was on the second floor, right above the movie room. It sounded like metal lightly hitting glass, again and again. The police were called, but they didn't find anything. You'd think that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. That night, as I was trying to sleep, I heard a quiet tapping sound beneath me. Once, I even thought I heard footsteps on the roof. I checked all the windows every time, never saw anything. But I couldn't get rid of the feeling that I was being watched. I tried convincing myself it was nothing. But the tapping continued for hours, and it didn't stop there. This happened night after night for weeks. Sometimes it would stop for a while, then come back. Then winter came. My parents had to leave town for a few days. They were still uneasy after everything that had happened, so before they left, they gave me a shotgun, just in case. We also had a big Rottweiler, the sweetest dog ever, but he only barked when he sensed real danger. One night, while I was alone, I heard slow, heavy footsteps crunching through the snow outside. They were loud and careful, like someone walking slowly on purpose. My dog stood up immediately. His ears perked, and then he started growling, low and deep, right at the front door. Then he began barking like crazy, nonstop. He had never acted like that unless there was really something outside. I didn't want the person outside to know I was home. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. Then, there was a knock on the door. It wasn't normal. It was slow and hollow, almost like it was meant to mock me. Fresh human footprints, all around the house, in the snow. They stopped at every single window, like the person was walking from window to window, trying to spot me inside. I didn't answer. I followed them about half a mile before they started going in circles, zigzagging, doubling back, like the person was trying to confuse anyone following them. That night, I slept with the shotgun next to me, the doors locked, blinds closed, and my dog at the foot of the bed. The next morning, I went outside and saw something that made my stomach drop. Footprints. I followed the tracks around the house, then into the forest. That's when I turned around. Something told me it was a very bad idea to keep going. That night, the tapping came back. Louder this time. I knew it was him. I unlocked my bedroom door, grabbed the shotgun, and stepped out onto the second-floor deck. I flipped on the fog lights that lit up the backyard. There he was. Same man, same smile, same dead, staring eyes. He was holding the knife again and looking straight at me, like he could see inside my head. I raised the shotgun and shouted, "If you don't leave, I'll shoot." But he didn't flinch. He didn't move at all. Just stood there grinning. So I fired a warning shot into the air. That finally made him react. He stumbled a little, then slowly backed into the trees, still facing me the entire time. That's when I decided to unleash the dog. I ran downstairs, threw open the sliding door, and let him loose. But I like to think he chased that man far enough into the woods that he never came back. He shot off like a black missile, barking and growling. I had never seen him so aggressive. He was wearing a shock collar, so he couldn't go too far, because after that night, I never saw him again. This happened during spring break in March 2022. I was in my second year of college, and my friends and I, 6 of us total, decided to rent a cabin in South Carolina for a few days to relax. We wanted to get away from school, stress, and even our phones. The goal was just to drink, party a bit, play loud music, and make memories we'd laugh about later. 2 stories, 2 bathrooms, a big porch that wrapped around the whole place, and it was on private land near a lake. It was really far from everything. No towns nearby, just thick woods in every direction. There were 4 guys, me, Matt, Chris, and Tyler, and 2 girls, Jess and Sarah. We'd all been close since freshman year. The cabin we found was shockingly cheap for how big it was. We thought he was just trying to sound spooky or dramatic. When we spoke to the guy who owned the place, he had a thick southern accent and seemed a little strange. All he told us was, "Don't go wandering too deep into the woods. Some old stuff back there. Wells, broken fences, snakes. You don't want to get turned around." We laughed it off. But when we got to the cabin, it wasn't funny anymore. The last part of the road was just dirt and gravel, barely wide enough for 1 car. The trees grew denser and darker as we got closer. The drive took forever, and our GPS stopped working about an hour before we arrived. When we finally saw the cabin, everyone got really quiet. It looked nothing like the pictures. It was old, dusty, and kind of falling apart. A few window shutters were hanging loose. There was even a weird smell outside, like wet wood and garbage. We grilled outside, blasted music, and played card games. Still, we joked about it and said it added character. We unpacked, chose rooms, and started drinking. It wasn't just normal nighttime dark, it was complete, unnatural blackness. The porch lights barely lit a few feet ahead. It felt like the trees were closing in on us. By 7 p.m., it was a good time. But by 11 p.m., it got freezing cold, so we moved inside. It was small, just a bed and a window facing the forest. That's when I noticed how dark the woods were. No bugs, no wind, just total silence. We all went to bed around 2 a.m. My room was downstairs, next to the kitchen. Around 4:15 a.m., I suddenly woke up. No noise, no dream, just wide awake, like something had startled me. I laid there with my heart pounding. Then I heard it, tap, tap, tap. At first, I thought maybe it was the heater. But then it happened again, even and soft, not metal or mechanical. It sounded like fingers. I turned to the window. There was a man standing outside. His face was pressed up against the glass. Pale skin, messy hair, no shirt, just standing there, staring at me. His mouth was slightly open, breathing through it. His eyes were wide and didn't blink. He didn't move. He just kept tapping, soft and slow, like he was teasing me. My body froze. Then the tapping got faster. I whispered Matt's name. He was sleeping on the couch outside my room. He didn't wake up. I said his name louder. Finally, he sat up, groggy, asking what was wrong. I didn't say anything. I just pointed. He turned to the window, saw the man, and jumped up, knocking over the coffee table. That must have scared the guy, because by the time Matt turned on the porch light and ran outside, the man was gone. We all woke up after Matt saw the man. The girls were terrified, and Tyler tried to calm everyone down by saying it was probably just some drunk local messing around. He came right up to the window and stared straight at me. That wasn't someone who was lost. Nothing else happened that night. Chris suggested maybe it was a hunter who got lost, but I knew it wasn't that. They circled the entire cabin, stopping at every window, even the tiny one above the shower upstairs. That man was watching us. We barricaded the doors, moved the couch in front of the big living room window, and took turns staying awake in shifts. Jess didn't drink that night. Chris kept a hunting knife on his belt. He stopped in the hallway and quietly called my name. I got up and saw him pointing into the kitchen. We were stubborn and didn't want to waste the trip. The next morning, we went outside and saw bare footprints in the dirt. Human footprints with no shoes on. That should have been our sign to leave, but we didn't. Night started just like before. Drinks, music, fire pit, but the vibe had changed. Everyone was tense. People kept glancing at the woods. When we finally went inside, we locked every window and double-checked the doors. Around 3:30 a.m., Matt went to the kitchen to get water. There was someone standing there. It was the same man, but this time, he was inside the cabin. He was naked, facing the fridge, with his back to us. His back was covered in long, red scratches, and he stood motionless, swaying slightly, like he was confused or in a trance. He didn't even seem to notice us. Matt didn't say a word. He slowly backed up. We all gathered at the end of the hallway, quiet and terrified. Sarah grabbed the fire poker. Chris picked up a broken chair leg from earlier. I had a small pocket knife. We turned on the light. The man was gone. The back door was wide open, but not broken or forced. It was just open. That was it. We left 20 minutes later. No one argued. We packed only what we needed: wallets, keys, phones, and drove through the woods until we had a strong enough signal to call the police. We finally got cell signal and called the sheriff. He told us to meet a deputy at a diner off the highway. When we met him, he didn't look surprised at all. The first thing he asked was, "Is anyone hurt?" We said no. Then he said something that stuck with me. "Yeah, we've had some trouble with folks squatting up in those woods, not always right in the head." We tried to explain it wasn't just some random homeless guy. This man had been watching us for 2 nights in a row, and somehow he had a way into the house. He got inside without breaking anything. The deputy just nodded, like he'd heard this same story before. When we mentioned the cabin's owner, something changed in his face. It was subtle. The cabin's listing vanished from every rental website. It was just gone, like it had never been there, but it looked like he recognized the name, like he knew something but wasn't saying it. A few days later, we never got a call back, never got any answers, and we definitely didn't get our deposit back. But the thing that stayed with me the most, the face of that man. The way he stared at me through the window. Eyes wide, mouth open, like he was looking through me, not at me. Sometimes I still see that face when I wake up at night. We don't talk about that trip anymore, but as far as I know, none of us have ever gone back to South Carolina since.